7, so we are ready to go. Welcome to the November school board meeting. We're happy to have so many faces out there this evening. Welcome. We are all here except Donna is home not feeling well this evening, so we'll miss her this evening and send her well wishes to get better. And before we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, I just want to thank our veterans for their service. Veterans Day was this past week. So as we're saying Pledge of Allegiance, let's just keep them in our hearts and minds. Okay, thank you. Let's rise for Pledge of Allegiance if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, first on our agenda this evening, we have the Smart Schools Bond Act presentation with Megan Coker.
So Smart Schools Bond Act is something that we haven't talked about in a really long time, but it started back in 2014-15. Thank you. When New York State allocated $2 billion to finance improved educational technology to specifically support teaching and learning. At that time, allocations to districts was based on need. So at that time, Lake George was allocated $229,532. In 2018, we completed phase 1. So we used part of that money for phase 1. And that was based on our need at the time of going 1-to-1. We needed to increase our internet bandwidth to support all of the devices in the district. So we purchased core components for our connectivity and our edge switches in the closets. That was a total cost of $197,295. So that left us with $33,000. That's been kind of sitting for a little while because the way that we can use Smart Schools bond monies, there's a lot of restrictions around what can and can't be purchased with those monies. And when it comes to technology, that can get us just so far with $33,000. So we've been kind of waiting for the right opportunity to utilize that last bit of funding from New York State. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to propose phase 2 to purchase 23 LED projectors. So the purpose behind these and the need for these is our commitment to innovative and efficient learning spaces. So we have a instructional technology plan with New York State, and one of our goals in that plan is innovative and engaging learning environments. And we've been replacing our projectors slowly over the last few years with these projectors, which provide a couple things. They're instant on. There's no wait time for them to start to light up. They also run quieter, produce less heat, and have a longer lifespan. So it's something that we have been replacing our projectors with. This would enable us to really sort of finish off that replacement and would use the remaining funds. So at that point, we would have been able to utilize all of the funding through Smart Schools Bond Act. There is a very specific process. So this plan has been posted on the district website for the public to view. We're presenting it publicly here tonight. And then it needs to stay on the website for 30 days. And then we would come back at the next board meeting for a public hearing about this, where the community would have an opportunity to share their thoughts. And then potentially the board would vote to approve this plan. And if they did on the 12th, then we could move forward with submission to the state. So we submit, and then we can make the purchase, and then they reimburse us after we've made the purchase. Lastly, here on the slides, which you have access to, it's just the link to our instructional technology plan that I referenced. This is also available on the website. It outlines our goals and plans for the 2022 to 2025 school year specific to instructional technology. Any questions?
I have kind of a silly question. What's an edge switch?
This is why Matt's here.
Okay.
So Matt Hull is our coordinator of instructional technology.
Hey, how's it going? Okay, I'll keep it simple. So we have everything connects to a center spot, but in order to get everything to that center spot, we have to send out fiber connections to all the sections of the building, and all those extra edge locations have devices that connect them called edge switches. So that gets all the remote devices back to that center. So
Okay.
we replace all those edge devices.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
If I understood correctly, the funds are already there.
Yes, so
This
this
is just-
money was, it's not that it's waiting for us.
Right.
Yep, so the state is basically holding on to it until we spend it. We do have to submit to them, even though it's for us, we still have to submit so they can say, yes, this equipment that you want to purchase does meet the requirements. And once they've approved it, we're able to purchase. And then we tell them, hey, we've purchased it, it costs this much, and they'll reimburse us at that
So you're
point.
just going through the process that the state wants to be able to access
That,
those funds that are already there.
exactly.
Okay. Got it. Thank
Was
you.
this pretty much a universal need that was identified, or were there other things that were vying for, a possible proposal rather than this?
This was something that we've been working towards. And again, with that amount of $33,000, any other needs that we have would have exceeded that amount and or wouldn't have fit the requirements of Smart Schools.
Thanks.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have Mr. Jim Conway, our elementary principal, for the elementary update.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I want to start off just mentioning a few celebrations that we had at the elementary school that are worth noting. Last week, we had our own election day, which is always exciting. Mrs. Crossman does a wonderful job with many of her programs, but our kids decorate pumpkins. They were amazing. It was absolutely amazing, but they do this decoration. I think we had 36 entries submitted, and then the kids vote on them throughout the day to learn about how the process works to cast a ballot. We had student volunteers that were involved in that process as grade levels made their way in and cast their ballots, and it was impressive. It was not easy to vote, I will tell you that. But we also had 10 students attend the all-county chorus event in Granville under the supervision of our music teacher, Mariah Nissen. And as Mr. Kokoza and I share all the time, we're really proud of our music department and the work that our teachers do with our students. And it's another example of that. Oftentimes they give you updates on the work, the good work that our teachers are doing and the leadership that they're providing as we work towards different building level goals. But I also want to share that our student lighthouse team is developing various action teams, and they're going to be working on projects that I will keep you updated on, and I'll know more about that by our next month meeting. I'm excited because I never know what great thing is going to happen because we don't steer them in any direction, which is the beauty of this. They have voice in coming up with whatever it is that they're going to do. And I have no idea what that's going to be, but I know that some exciting things will happen. We'll be sharing that information with you soon. Also, I want to thank Marianne and Katie for attending the last PTSO meeting. And one of the things that they were able to see is that our PTSO has some energy and excitement, new officers that have carried the good work that was done by our last officers, and I'm excited about the work that they're doing. And the co-presidents are Kerry Spring and Katie Long. Big day report cards going home, which are now followed up by our student-led parent-teacher conferences. And again, one of the ideas behind having students sitting in on those conferences and taking an active role is that they are becoming responsible for leading and goal setting and coming up with that voice in their own education. What is important? What do I need to do? What's my plan to get to where I want to go, whether that's my academic goals or maybe something beyond academics that I'm passionate about. So for the next 3 days, we do have half days where those conferences will be taking place. Quick update. I shared with you, and I know it's an important goal for us as a district that we're looking at, as many schools in the region, the state are attendance. And we have an action team in the building that is focused on improving our overall student attendance, but also reducing those chronically absent students. And I looked today before the meeting, and this is pretty amazing to me that we're 46 days into the school year. And last year at this point, we had 811 total absences. What that means is if you think about 300 students, they missed about 2.7 days each on average. As of today, we missed about 1.7, which from 811 to 515 absences. So our daily attendance rate is 96.22%, which puts us back to where we were a few years ago. And that was consistent with where we had been for many years. So I give a lot of credit to the work that our teachers are doing and the action team that's focused on addressing things. We still are, we still work with those kids that are really struggling through our counselors, through myself in our office, but at that tier 1 level, that classroom level, those interactions and the things that our teachers are doing to make attendance important. If you're sick, you're sick, but making sure that our kids are in school, it's having an impact. We're already seeing some really good results. And finally, one of the things that in our district we're always proud of, but again, it's one measure, but we will celebrate when we get good positive recognition. The U.S. News and World, they do a program that they refer to some high achieving schools in New York State as best schools, not the best, but as best schools. And as of today, we got the results for the elementary school, and our scores were high enough to put us in that category. And there's a lot of data there, and I believe now all 3 levels have been recognized for that, which is something to celebrate the hard work that our teachers are doing and our students. So wanted to share that again. I view that SEL component as important or more, but this is good data and we should be proud and celebrate that. And that's all I've got.
It's a lot of good news.
Questions?
Thank you, Jim.
Yes.
And I'm glad you mentioned PTSO. It's always heartening to see the parent engagement, and there was really a lot of positive energy in the room and a high level of parent engagement that evening. So and the news of the parent engagement on a regular basis. So thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the secondary update with Mr. Fran Kokoza.
Hi, good evening. So at the last board meeting, I spoke about the revamped open house. And since the last board meeting, we had our open house and we're pleased to say it was a huge success. We had our highest attendance ever in the time that I've been here at the high school. And we received feedback from parents and staff alike, and the feedback was just tremendous. So with a few tweaks to the format and structure moving forward, I believe that we're going to continue with the same newly revamped structure to our open house. So that was a year and month process to change something that has been in place for quite a while, and we're very pleased with the success of our fall open house. As you're all aware, our fall sports teams has had quite an exciting postseason, and probably at the next board meeting, I'll give a full update as to how fall sports took place this fall. However, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about our volleyball team. As you know, we hosted a regional competition and our girls were successful. So this Saturday, our girls will be going to the Glens Falls Civic Center for the state semifinals. The first game is Saturday at 7:15 versus Tuxedo. And if the girls are successful then they will move on Sunday to the finals at 2 o'clock. So that's this weekend is the state volleyball tournament locally here in Glens Falls at the Civic Center. The junior senior high school had our fall early winter concerts. They were excellent. Great attendance at both the junior high and senior high concerts. So I want to thank John Alecci and Amy Baker for just an awesome way to start out the school year with our 2 concerts, and job well done by our students. Today, our forum met, our shared decision-making body met. Our 2 goals of student recognition and student-adult connections. Our committees are formed, and we're starting our action teams and goals around those 2 focuses for forum. So throughout the year, I'll be reporting on those 2 focuses of forum. And like Jim, we wish you all a very nice and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. And Fran, I love hearing, it's another great example of parent engagement. And thank you for listening to the feedback over the years and figuring out a way to help parents be more engaged with open house. And I think also helpful for the faculty and staff who participate in that as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have? Okay. Thank you again. Next on our list is the superintendent's report with Mr. John Luthringer.
Yes, thank you, Katie. Lots of great things going on. We had some really interesting news that came up today, as Mr. Conway mentioned, from the U.S. News and World Report. I spoke and Mr. Kokoza spoke earlier this year when the high school was ranked in what's considered the top 40% of schools in New York State, but also one of the top schools in the region and the whole nation. So today we've got word about the elementary school, and also, even though we don't have a middle school, the junior high was also recognized as well. So I want to give kudos to our principals, our teachers, and certainly our parents as well for being so supportive, along with the Board of Education, as we really are. We have 3 of our schools, I should say, in the top 40% of New York. So we just got those reports today. It'll be interesting to look at. They are very academic based, as we talked about, and the elementary and junior high are typically focused these reports on math and reading proficiency. So again, really excited about it. And again, a good testament to the work being done each day in our schools. The other thing that came out yesterday was from the state level, the report, the Blue Ribbon Commission. So the Blue Ribbon Commission has been working on graduation measures for the better part of a couple of years. So there's been a lot of emphasis on, are the regions still the best fit for our students? And they finally released their report today, yesterday to the Board of Regents. And this is just their findings. So the Blue Ribbon Commission included lots and lots of stakeholders, lots and lots of districts that were part of the pilot program. They were piloting different performance-based assessments. They were piloting different programming, focused on CTE and a variety of different other programs. And they finally released their results. And you may have seen in the news as well, a lot of the emphasis was on are the regions disappearing, and that's not what's happening. But there are 12 points that they make. I'm not going to get into all of them, and we just got them, and eventually the Board of Regents will have to act on them. These are just recommendations from this report, but just a couple of them that I'd touch on here is that there is recommendations to replace currently there's three diplomas, local regents and advanced regents with designation, with 1 diploma with the options to add seals and endorsements like we do now, but there'd be maybe additional ones associated with that. One of the recommendations is to include civic responsibility, cultural competence, financial literacy education, fine and performing arts, science, technology, engineering, and math, so STEM credits, and writing, including writing skills for real-world scenarios and diploma credit requirements. A third one was ensure access to career and technical education, including internships and work-based learning opportunities for all students across New York State. And one of the other big ones was to review and revise the New York State learning standards. So some of these are pretty lofty and big, especially the learning standards. But really the goal of this whole commission was to really look at, and they recognize the value of the regents as one valid measure for determining student proficiency. But what they also are saying is that by providing assessment flexibility, students could demonstrate content knowledge in a way that best suits their individual strengths and talents. So that was also what came out of it. So between now and next spring, the Board of Regents will be taking a close look at these recommendations, and some of it's going to require the state ed to act, the Board of Regents to act. So there'll be a process for this, and then schools will have to align at some point down the road. But it is interesting to read. I'll share more of this with the Board of Education as well, and we did share that out with staff and faculty as well. So it was definitely interesting and something that we were kind of waiting on. So that was exciting. I'm going to shift gears here to a presentation as well. So I just had those couple bullet points, and I'm going to shift gears to a presentation about pre-K. Okay. So in our district here, this is one thing that we've been looking at and talking about for a number of years, really since I started here, the importance of early childhood education and opportunities for our students of early childhood to have opportunities for education. And we're going to talk a little bit about what this looks like for Lake George here. So I'm going to go through a series of slides that explain where we've been and where we would like to go. So one of the things that we talk about as an administrative team, or anything that we do in our district when we talk with the Board of Education, is we always want to look at it through the lens of our mission, vision, and values. So anytime we're thinking of initiatives or programming, this is where we start. And when you think about our mission to personalize opportunities for all students to be lifelong learners, leaders, and global citizens, this is an area that we started with. And then our vision has a multiple different vision statements, and we looked closely at this one about a comprehensive K-12 instructional programming using best practices. That's always our goal, and that's something that we want to continue to foster in Lake George. And then we look at our CREATE values as well, and fostering these for students between kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade. We'd like to see our students foster these and have these traits before they head out into career. And when you think about it, when you think about an early childhood program, all of these make sense. And when you think about a Lake George pre-K program, the earlier we can get our students in the doors and into our classrooms with our teachers, the more likely we're going to be able to meet all of these goals. So this is where we started, and we really dug into this, and we really feel that bringing a Lake George pre-K program really is in line with our mission, vision, and values. So to add on to that, why create a pre-K program? So there's tons and tons of research out there in regards to the benefits of a pre-K program. These are a few of them. So improved school readiness. So students that participate in a high quality pre-K program are more likely to be successful with social emotional skills, reading skills, early numeracy skills. As they progress through the grade levels, they are more successful compared to peers that may have not been in a pre-K program. It also is, there's clear evidence that narrow achievement gaps especially for different socioeconomic levels as well. So that is very clear. It levels the playing field for students, especially ones that come from a lower socioeconomic background. There's also long-term benefits. There's lots of studies about students who participate in a pre-K program are more likely to graduate. They're more likely to have the skills ready for career and or college, and they're more likely to be successful for really the length of their lifetime. One of the last couple pieces here, we know that it'll support the greater community and our parents. So again, when you can offer a program at no cost, it helps our parents, it helps our students, it helps our community. And the last piece that's most important is that there is state funding for this as well. So this has been something that the state has been emphasizing for a number of years now. They're providing funding. We'll talk about that in one of the slides as well. And this is an important piece to the puzzle because it does allow us to have funds to provide a program for our students. So again, we looked at a lot of different things when we were talking about how to bring this to life for Lake George. So I'm going to get into a couple of the regulations slides as well. So this is, again, bringing a UPK or a pre-K program to life is subject to rules and regulations in the Section 3602E of education law, which I'm going to summarize in the next couple of slides here. So UPK is a state and federally funded program, pre-K program. It has to be offered to families free of charge. Again, that's why they're offering funding sources. The only eligibility requirement for UPK in New York State is the child's residency and age. So eligible children must be 4 years or old on or before December 1st of the school year of enrollment, and they must reside in the district. Yes.
Does that mean that our out of residence, if folks want to come into the district, that doesn't apply to this program?
Correct.
Yeah.
They have to reside in district.
Okay.
For UPK funding for Lake George, and really the emphasis from any state funding moving forward is it has to be for a full day program. There are many half day programs out there, but they're being pushed to move to a full day program as well. For the funding that we can receive, it has to be full day. That means a minimum of 5 hours per day, 180 school days. In the work that we've been doing, Mr. Conway and Mrs. Hart, we've been really doing a lot of planning on that. We anticipate recommending that we just follow the same schedule, our normal schedule that we have at the elementary school. There is curriculum, there is New York State pre-K learning standards, so it must be aligned to those. So you can see those categories here. Again, when you look across those categories, it really is about approaching it from the whole child perspective. We're talking about 3-year-olds moving to 4-year-olds. And when you think about approaches to learning, how do you learn? How do you build some of these basic skills in those young children that are coming to us? Social and emotional development, physical development, knowledge of the world, language and literacy, communication. All of these sort of early primary skills are the focus of a high-quality pre-K program. Teachers must hold a teaching license in early childhood grades. That's a requirement. They must hold a license. We're fortunate in our elementary school where we have a number of our faculty that already have that certification, which is a great perk. And certainly there's interest in that program from that perspective. All UPK students must participate in a diagnostic screening. That's required. That's no different than really our our kindergarten enrollment screening, but it has to be a diagnostic screening. So that's something that we'll be continuing to investigate. We are required to have a lottery process. That is a requirement. We'll talk a little bit more about that in future slides. Transportation is not required. Actually, our UPK students are not eligible for transportation aid. All the rest of our students, we do get aid for our students riding the bus. We will not for transportation. We can provide transportation. It's just not required by law. It is something that we're talking about internally. How would we make that work? When you're talking 3-year-olds getting on a bus, there's a whole set of different things that you need to think about. So those are areas that we're continuing to still explore with our transportation department and our team working on this. The last piece I'm going to talk about, I'll linger here for a minute, is that there is a requirement to collaborate with eligible community-based organizations. And what that means is they're called CBOs. And one of them in our local community is Caldwell Preschool. And I just want to talk for a little bit about that because we have a tremendous relationship with Caldwell going back, many, many, many years. Caldwell's been a fixture in our community as offering preschool opportunities for our community for the better part of 50 years. When I started, was one of the first places I visited. I wanted to see where our students are coming from. I got to develop a great rapport with not only their pastor, but also their director, Megan Quillinan. And we've been talking about this for the better part of 2 years, that the state is really emphasizing school districts to start their own program. It was not something that they were shocked by when we started really talking about it. We had a great meeting this fall. We're going to continue to collaborate. We're going to continue to transition their students to our program. We meet with them many times during the school year. They come over, they enjoy the playground, they enjoy our cafeteria, they do reading activities. We're going to continue that. And because of our conversations we started last year, Caldwell started the 2-year-old program this year. So they knew this was an option for us. This knew something that we were excited about and wanting to bring to our community. So they started the 2-year-old program. They have great numbers there. They have a 3-year-old program, and they may continue to still have a 4-year-old program because some families will want a half-day program. There's options now. So that's something that we're looking to continue to work on with them. We're going to be meeting with their preschool committee in December to continue those dialogues as well. But my point of this is we are required per New York State to really seek out potential partnerships. So what that means is we have to put an RFP together, which is a request for proposal. It has to go out, sort of like a bid process where you have to send it out, and it outlines all of our program requirements, our schedule, our curriculum, our standards. It outlines everything that we're looking for in a program, and it allows different CBOs to essentially apply. Now, why does this exist? Well, a lot of schools don't necessarily have space. They want to offer a pre-K program. They have lots of funding from the state, but they might be at capacity in their district or in their buildings. So they might need to they would need to collaborate with an organization to offer their program they might have the space to do so. So this exists for that's one of the reasons. We don't have that need, due to declining enrollment, we do have space. Space is not a concern for the elementary school. But, and I'll just use an example. A school right to the south of us put out a request for proposal last year. They didn't get any applicants because, again, there are options for parents. Some might want a different program, and the existing CBOs will want to keep the program. So we have to do this. It is an annual process, and there could be applications, but we have to develop a rubric, and it's up to the district to determine whether or not a CBO would be approved or denied. So I mentioned funding before, and this slide is we're not, there's a lot to this, and I'm just going to talk about this for a minute here. There are really, I refer to them as sources, or you could think of them, I also think of them as silos or buckets sometimes of funding that exist. Some of the funding you'll notice are called allocations, so that's actually in the budget, the state budget, and then some of them are referred to as competitive grants. Lake George only qualifies for the first one, which is a state UPK funding allocation. That allocation started in 1998, and you can see that there was an additional appropriations for that in the state budget last year and the year before. So which this benefits Lake George because it's in the state budget. It is an allocation. It's not a grant that we have to apply for every single year or really we're at risk of losing it. We do not anticipate, we have a state liaison who actually is assigned to our district. This is not something that's going to go away. If anything, it's going to continue to grow. There's been heavy investments, not only from the federal government, but also the state government in attempting to fully fund pre-K. So this is our allotment. Our funding allocation is $108,000. It is subject to a 10% set aside to eligible agencies. Again, that partnership. So we would be subject potentially to lose 10% of that, but this is enough money to cover us for a maximum of 20 students. That is our allocation. That's the number of students that we could provide a pre-K program for. So we started to develop a real framework for the rest of this year. This is a general timeline. Again, this is subject to some, there's fluidity might occur between the months here. We took a close look at some other districts and how they planned and how they went through the course of the year. So if you think from July to September, and even really dating back into last year, we were doing a lot of research planning, looking at laws, looking at regulations, looking at funding. We attended a really great, the state had put on a Navigating UPK workshop, which was really helpful. So Bonnie and Mr. Conway and I went down there. It was really helpful. It kind of launched us saying, hey, we can do this. And it's something that would really benefit our families and our students. In October, you can see there, I met with Caldwell again. We started doing real preparation and planning meetings. We had a board of announcement I talked about at the October meeting. We met with our staff and faculty, and then we started that RFP process as well, developing that. In November, we had our high school staff meeting. We presented more thoroughly to the cabinet meeting in elementary school, which was great. We got some great feedback from our teachers and parents that were part of that meeting. And then tonight we're here presenting to the board on our initial steps. In November, we're looking to begin scheduling school visitations. You'll see that over the next few months. We feel that that'll be really valuable. There's programs that exist all around our region. Really, if you look to the north of us, Warrensburg has a program, Hadley Luzerne has a program, Queensbury has a new program, Greenwich. So we're looking to identify some schools of similar size, do some visitations, find out, that's really where you learn everything. You learn from the teachers, you learn from the faculty, you learn from the administrators who started to build the program. So we're excited for those school visitations to start. It will be part of our newsletter as well. That's going out in the next week or two. In December, January, February, as we get into winter, there's going to be a lot of work being done, finalizing that RFP process. School visits continue. We begin to develop program description and curriculum and development. We have to develop a lottery process, so that has to happen. We'll be working on that. We want to finalize teacher and staffing in December. We're going to be presenting to the Caldwell Preschool Committee as well. And then we get into January, there'll be another formal board presentation with more thorough, Mr. Conway and I will be doing one and more thoroughly describing the program and what it looks like. The board does have to adopt the program. January 15th, we'd release the RFP, so we'd send it out wide. And again, you can kind of see school visits continue, curriculum development, budget planning, all of those things are going to continue on and through the winter. We anticipate the RFP due back in February. We would review that. We'd work with meet with any eligible agencies that we potentially would approve. We don't anticipate anyone putting in for that, but we'll wait and see. And again, you can see curriculum development continues. We'll start working formal communication to pre-K parents and start really that pre-K registration process. Starting to look at getting, what kind of numbers are we going to have? In March, the lottery process continues. We would tentatively schedule the March 25th parent night for interested families, and obviously continue curriculum and finalize budget. Lottery selection would occur. We got some good feedback from a parent that if we could try to move that up a little bit, that would be helpful. So we're looking at that to occur for lottery selection. And then April, screening tool, wait lists, potential for wait lists, schedule screening times, and it keeps just kind of progressing. There's another in May, there's a part 2 of the Navigating Pre-K session at the state level that we'll attend. Curriculum development will continue, and we'll be looking at pre-K screening and enrollment in May. In June, July, and August, it's really, time to get ready. Our goal is to have it program open for September 2024. So you can see here that there's lots of work throughout the summer that will happen, including setting up a classroom, summer curriculum work, finalizing and sharing the parent guides, and then we'll have a UPK pre-K open house in August at some point. So this was, I know, a brief overview presentation, kind of outlining really the next from now until the end of summer. And this is subject to some changes as well slightly, but it's something that, again, we really value and really excited about. Mr. Conway and myself have had a lot of good discussions, and we're really looking forward to this opportunity to bring something that could bring such positivity to our school and really help a lot of families. Any questions?
Thanks, John. I have a quick question. You mentioned that children in the pre-K program would be receiving a diagnostic screening that's different from the kindergarten screening, or is it the same type of screening? Or
it could be. It has to be like a normed assessment, so we have to look into that. There's a variety of them out there. It may be something that could be very similar to what we use with kindergarten roundup, but really it just assesses where the students are at when they come into us. But it has to be designed specifically for that age group.
I see. I was just wondering if you anticipated like an impact on like the need for our clinical staff, like PTOT and speech therapy and
yeah, so that's another
impact
good
of the
question.
program.
So any students that come through pre-K would still be subject to CPSE services, and those services so typically would go through the county as they do now. So we might see providers from the county still come in because currently that's how it works now. They might go to Caldwell, or they might go to World Class Kids, or wherever they might go. That being said, we've started to have some discussions of could we, if speech services are necessary for a UPK child, could we potentially offer them with existing staff that we have now? So those are things that those are in the works, trying to figure it out. And also, we're not sure of the need at this point either. So that will be something that would be determined either through that screening process and or through additional CPSE services that might come up through that network.
John,
All right.
I just have a couple of things. First of all, it's great to see something tangible. It's been more than 2 years that school's been talking about, so it's wonderful to see a actual possible end date. When you were talking about the funding, you said we only qualify for the first 2 buckets or silos. Why don't we qualify for the other ones?
Well, it's similar to how when we struggle with this, our state aid ratio is so low. It's the state's, part of it has to do with enrollment. So our funding allocation is based on enrollment, but some of it is based off of basically our socioeconomic status. We're not considered a high needs district, although that is changing. We've seen our free and reduced lunch population grow to 26%. So that is changing. But that is some of the reasoning why we don't qualify for the other grants.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. That was an excellent presentation. I really appreciate all the research that everyone's done and the community partnerships that have been built. So thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the Audit and Finance Committee report, and Mario Fasullo is going to do that. He's the chair of that committee.
Thanks, Katie. At the meeting, I wasn't there, but I went through the notes with Bonnie. They reviewed the treasurer's report. The tax collection for September was $11 million. And if you remember, the town has to give us the taxes that are due, and it's their responsibility to go get the whatever funds weren't paid in. We also had a payment in lieu of taxes of $76,000 from Sun Valley Apartments and the Fort William Henry. And there's still one more pilot payment in lieu of taxes that is due from Boats by George. And we should have gotten this in October, but we'll talk about it at the next meeting. We also, every year, we have an energy cost that we purchase through BOCES. They reconciled, and any excess funds are redistributed back to the districts. So we received a refund of about $23,000. And interest rates, we're still earning, last month we earned $33,000 on our investments, which right now we're a little bit over 5%. So we are benefiting from that. Claim auditors report, there was nothing really noteworthy on there. There are 2 budget amendments you will see later in the meeting. The first one was to amend the budget for plant supplies. Last year, there was a storm and some trees fell on the fence. So we, the insurance claim came in for us to pay for us to repair that. And then a couple of months ago, we approved the repair or not the repair. We used money from the repair reserve to purchase the steamer oven for the cafeteria. That has come in. So now we just need to approve those funds moving over. There was a lot of conversation over legacy costs for retirees on Medicare and different insurance plans. The presentation really talked about the need to address the cost responsibly while ensuring that we are taking care of the retired district employees. One of the sections which was lengthy was the proposal entails offering an additional Medicare Advantage plan, which was customized and designed specifically for Lake George to provide retirees with comp coverage to the existing options while delivering substantial financial benefits and additional benefits. And when I asked Bonnie about it, we talked about who is getting these benefits, and it's really both. So first of all, it's an option for them, for the retirees to go in. They do not have to go into this. But if they do, they have the ability of getting a lower copay with some more options, and it's a less cost for us. So there's really a win-win for both of those. And then the last thing really was next month, we will dig deep into the profit and loss of the cafeteria and discuss how the community eligibility provision, which I don't know if everybody saw, that now is providing free breakfast and lunch for students. We're going to dig into how that affects our P&L. And I believe that was it. Did I say anything? Profit and loss. Yes, sorry. Yep. Any questions?
Thank you, Mario. The next item on the agenda is our curriculum committee report with Rosemary Earle, who's the chair of that committee.
Thanks, Katie. So our curriculum committee met on October 10th, and we talked about a lot of things. We've reviewed the charter, and with help from Marianne, we developed a charter, and I've attached it to the minutes so you can all see what the charter says, and we've submitted that to Katie already. But really the meat of the meeting, we talked about the curriculum renewal cycle and how that's going to change this year. And I know John and the administrators have worked and staff have worked hard on it since the beginning of the year, and even the administrators in this summer. So to summarize it, there'll be 4 stages in the new process. The first being research and audit curriculum, the second developing curriculum, the third implementing it, and the fourth monitoring, evaluating, and adjust. So they have the system that they would like to use for renewing their curriculum. What it means to us is that our presentations will be a little bit different than what we're used to. So the curriculum committee presentations now will be in the October meeting we'll hear from the Director of Curriculum for the plan for the year. In February, we'll have a presentation probably by John talking about impact curriculum and instruction has had from, state ed and local requirements. And then in the spring, the curriculum committee will get receive a presentation from the curriculum leaders and HODs. And then our Board of Education meeting presentations will be one presentation in the spring. Those that department that is going through research and audit. So if you go to the link, that's the curriculum renewal cycle, you'll see the, if you scroll down a little bit, the timeline, and you can see under 23-24 school year, the research and audit is the ELA and world language. They'll be on full board presentation by Director of Curriculum, principals, and curriculum coordinators. So we'll be talking about those departments. And the curriculum committee will receive information about the music, business, and family and consumer sciences by curriculum leaders because that's the implement stage. So that's what we'll receive this year. And as you can see in the renewal timeline each year, it's different. So they did a nice job with this. The staff worked on it on their conference day. And did I cover that all right? Okay. Any questions about any of that?
I've got a question. So,
Okay.
it is in our reorg meeting that we approve the curriculum for the year? That's the board's responsibility then? And is it the curriculum committee that comes forward and makes that recommendation to the board from the
Yes.
review?
Yes.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. The next item on the agenda is the Policy Committee report with Mary Ann McKenzie, who is the chair of that committee.
Okay, so this evening we have 3 policies that are moving forward to second read. We spoke about each of those at last month's board meeting, so I'll move right on to the items that are moving forward to first read. Each of these policies, I'll try to break this down so that it makes sense. Each of these policies were reviewed by the policy committee and discussed at our policy committee meeting last week on the 6th. And 2 of them came our way to the policy committee by way of Erie One BOCES updates. And those 2 are 6121, sexual harassment in the workplace, and 3420, non-discrimination and anti-harassment in the district. Both of these policies are legally required policies. And we had a Erie One updates a few years back. This one was triggered by the release. The New York State Department of Labor crafted a new model of sexual harassment prevention policy. And these updates are in response to that model. So the revisions for policy 6121, sexual harassment in the workplace, reflects updated language regarding gender identity, expanded definition of sexual harassment, references to remote work, bystander intervention strategies, retaliation examples, and other types of discrimination. The revisions under 3420, non-discrimination and anti-harassment in the district, those updates reflect the methods for reporting and investigating discrimination as described in the updated model of the sexual harassment prevention policy. And in both of these policies, during committee review, we additionally made a handful of suggestions to adjust some language just to make sure that the language promoted fairness and inclusivity. And after we did that, our attorneys vetted both of those policies and said those suggestions were fine. The other, let's see here, sorry, I'm gonna. So there are 3 other policies moving to first read tonight, and each of those 3 we reviewed by way of just our routine Lake George manual review. And one of them is 8331 controversial issues. Recall a couple of months ago, this had moved forward to first read. Tricia had asked the question about, whether we had talked about definition of controversial issues. We took it back and looked at it. And then, as often happens with policy, you take another pass at the language, and we saw an opportunity to really improve the policy overall. So this policy rewrite that you're looking at tonight includes a definition of controversial issues, benefits to students from engagement with such topics, and each of the bullet points in that policy was pulled right off of our philosophy statement in the forward of our policy manual. And other revisions were just to update the language around district obligations and stakeholder rights. And so we think it looks better, and we hope you do too. So another policy moving forward tonight is 8271, Internet Safety / Internet Content Filtering Policy. And this was, as it is in the manual currently, the committee found that it was, not that user-friendly or readable. And so at the district level, this policy was worked on and redrafted using the NYSBA template, just basically to make it more user-friendly and readable. And NYSBA template is the New York State School Board Association, and they have policy services as well. So, and then the next one is 7510, School Health Services. And this is what we realized during our review of this. We kind of bumped around with the language in this policy as well. The language is really derived largely right from legal text. It doesn't read quite so smoothly, but it is correct as is. And as we understand it, it is an umbrella policy for a handful of other policies related to health in the school district, student health. And so we talked about the possibility of, in the future, taking a look at all of those policies together and looking for opportunities to streamline some of this information, and it'll make it a little more concise and user-friendly. So let's see. That's it for first read. We also reviewed policy 8360, teaching about religion. It seemed current. We didn't see any need to make any suggested revisions there, so we're recommending just an updated date of review. And then lastly, Erie One BOCES had made a recommendation to retire policy 1511, which is regular meeting agenda, for the reason that it's procedural and they felt it didn't really fit in the realm of policy. And, by our electronic review, I think we had a consensus that probably makes sense, and that we think that we're recommending that we relocate that material to our board member reference guide, because I think there are elements in there that could be useful for board members. So that's our recommendation on that. Lastly, we did discuss a couple other things. The minutes to our policy meeting from last week are attached, and in addition to the things that are moving forward this evening, we also are in review with the comprehensive student attendance policy and the response to intervention process. Those remain under review. We're continuing to work on those. And that's it. Our next meeting's in January. Does anyone have questions?
Thank you, Mary Ann. The next item on the agenda is public comment, and this is the first of 2 public comment sections. And I'll read my little monthly blurb about public comments before we start that. The Lake George Central School District Board of Education welcomes district residents, parents, and other interested persons to its meetings. Community involvement at board meetings is encouraged so that the board can better understand and represent the views of its constituents. Please be aware that by law, individual student information or particular personnel issues cannot be discussed at public sessions of the board. Please tell us your name when you come to the microphone, and statements are limited to 3 minutes. The board and district staff take public comments very seriously, and careful notes of questions and concerns will be taken so that they can be addressed as soon as possible. The first public comment section for this evening is for items on the agenda. If anyone is attending virtually and you have a comment or question, please send an email to boe@lkgeorge.org. And the board members and our superintendent, John Luthringer, will be able to view these emails after the meeting and will be able to respond to that. Thank you in advance for helping maintain a safe and respectful, pardon? BOE@lkgeorge.org. You're welcome. And that's also, just for future reference, on our website, in the drop-down menu, you click on the Board of Education. There's a link to that email address, just for future reference. So thank you in advance for helping us maintain a safe and respectful decorum at our meeting. Now, we have sign-up sheets, and nobody has signed up for the first comment section. If somebody has decided that they would like to make a statement at the first section, you're certainly welcome to. We have a sign-up so that we have folks' information, and it allows us to be able to have that information to get back to you more readily, more easily. Is there anybody who would like to come to the first comment section come up? Okay. Yes.
Good evening, Linda Clark. I just have a question, and maybe you can clarify it. I'm looking at the old controversial issues language, and it says here there's an obligation for presenting opposing views. I don't see that in the new policy. If I'm missing it, can you explain where it is? And if it's not there, can you explain why that was removed? Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Is there anyone else? This first section? Yeah.
Is this still on?
Yes.
I'm Bob Flanagan, Notre Dame's Nottingham Drive in Queensbury, and a member of this school district. Months ago, I had asked the board members to explain your vague gender identity policy. Specifically, the sentence in that policy that says a student's sexual identity must be documented by a parent guardian, counselor, doctor, psychologist, psychiatrist, or other medical professionals. In particular, I'd ask which of those 6 people mentioned in your policy has the legal superiority over the others. I have not gotten an answer from any of the board members. Several months ago, your superintendent, when I asked that question of him, responded to me, well, we'll have to get some legal advice on that. I had a meeting with your superintendent. He did not provide that legal advice. I don't know whether the lawyer didn't answer him, whether he did not ask. They did, however, provide other legal advice. Right now, your gender identity policy remains as vague as I told you months ago. If you cannot tell me the words, what the words mean in that policy is vague. The district's lawyer did provide some guidance regarding the September 11th meeting that I had with John Luthringer. The lawyer, at least per John's written email to me, said that the Supreme Court decision of Skilling did not apply to the district's vagueness, in that Skilling was a Supreme Court ruling directed to a law or a penal statute. John said that the Lake George gender identity policy is not a penal statute, but rather a policy, and hence Skilling did not apply. I was prepared for such a weak, illogical response, and within seconds, I submitted to John the references void for vagueness, and I will give each of you a copy of it tonight.
Bob, we're at the 3-minute mark now.
Sorry?
We're at the 3-minute mark for public comment.
Void for vagueness applies to everything. Laws, policies, and rules written by organizations such as the FCC. So don't give me any nonsense that it doesn't apply.
Thank you, Bob. Do we have any other folks for public comment in this section? Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda is the school business portion, and it's the school business consent agenda.
Thank you, Katie. As recommended by the superintendent, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the school business consent agenda items A through N. In summary, item A is a motion to approve the regular minutes from last month. Item B is a motion for recommendation on Committee on Special Education. Item C and D refer to the Treasurer's report and Claims Auditor's report, as we heard through Mr. Fazzulo's report from Audit and Finance. The item E was referenced as well through Audit and Finance in regards to retiree health benefits. Item F is the customary practice for second reads of policy. Item G is the agreement, annual agreement with the Town of Lake George for winter season sanding that occurs each winter. Item H is a motion to approve the world language field trip request to Costa Rica. This is in 2025 with the stipulation that the trip could be canceled due to world events. Item I is a motion, item I and J refer to the items in the Audit and Finance report as well in regards to the insurance claims and the repair that we needed to do in the high school cafeteria, the steamer. Item K is a motion to declare the one Bluebird bus as surplus property. Item L and M both refer to the consortium that we participate in to reduce electricity and heating costs, NISMEC. And item N is a motion to rescind policy 1511, as Mary Ann also shared.
Have any questions, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is under faculty staff recognitions, and we have the faculty staff consent agenda.
As recommended by the superintendent, be resolved that the Board of Education of the Lake George Central School District hereby approves the faculty staff appointment consent agenda items A through K. Just in summary, item A is a motion to appoint Samantha Meyer to a 4-year probationary appointment as a teaching assistant. Item B is a motion to appoint Nissa So to the position of long-term substitute art teacher, K8. Item C is a motion to appoint Lauren Hall to the permanent position of account clerk in the competitive class of civil service. Item D is a motion to approve the leave of absence request for Casimira Hensler. Item E is a motion to approve Joseph Negron to the position of permanent substitute bus driver. Item F is a motion to appoint Kristen McCartan to the position of part-time food service helper. Item G is a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement between the Lake George Central School District and CSE. Item H is a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with the Lake George Central School District and the Lake George Central School District Staff Association regarding salary schedule for the position of groundskeeper custodian. And item I is a motion to amend the 23-24 coaches list and the 23-24 volunteer coaches list. Item J is a motion to amend the 23-24 extracurricular and co-curricular list. And item K is a motion to amend the 23-24 substitute list of employees not hired through BOCES.
Do we have any questions, any discussion? I'd like to say welcome to our new employees. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. So welcome. I guess I should have said welcome after that. So welcome again. The next item on the agenda is Board of Education comments and discussion. And Rosemary was going to, she was our representative, our delegate for the, at the New York State School Board Association. Well, you can explain what it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I was an alternate to the delegate for for the New York State School Boards Association night with resolutions. So Marianne couldn't make it, so I happily filled in, and I learned a lot. It was a very long, very long meeting. We had 56 resolutions to discuss, and each district seemed like wanted to have a voice in what we were discussing. So it was long, but I thought what I did was just take out a couple resolutions that I thought you might be interested in. If you have any specific questions about, because you did have the resolutions, if one passed or not, you can ask me. But for this report, I thought I'd just pull out some that I thought were important to us. So 3 important resolutions that passed. NYSBA wants to support the repeal of the relevant state law that mandates all school vehicles be zero emission by 2035. They want to support the state and federal legislation to accept small and rural schools from small and rural schools from the zero emission vehicle mandates. They want the state to continue a feasibility study on the zero emission school vehicle mandate. There were other resolutions supporting various things: instructional school year, the length of the school year, the funding for student mental health services, allows a date for the annual reorganization meeting to be on or before the Monday following July 20th. They talked about that. Increase in earning limits of the retired police officers for school safety officer, and making kindergarten attendance mandatory. They also supported authorizing the school districts to directly offer childcare for employees. I thought that was interesting, and many opposed to that. Many were in favor, and it passed. They also wanted to make Narcan available and used in all buildings. And there was a lot of concern about that. But it passed. They want to fully fund access to free meal programs, K-12. They want to secure funding to ensure full Wi-Fi or cellular access to every household. Support early voting for school budgets and elections. This is NYSBA's resolution. Special training for security officers. The things that they opposed that I thought you would be interested in. the legislative efforts to grant tenure to non-instructional school employees, legislative mandates that would impose new unfunded mandates, of course, and shifting financial responsibility for preschool special education from counties to school districts. We just talked about that a second ago. Any reduction to the requirements or standards related to history and civics in our curriculum. And they're opposed to replacing readiness exams with the essay tests. So that's just a little summary about what we talked about. Like I said, there was a lot more than that. And if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to, I have them all noted in my notebook to answer any specific ones.
I
Questions you
just
have.
had one question, Rosemary. So you were talking about the advocacy to repeal the mandate on the timeline for the electric
Oh, the
bus
buses?
mandate? Is that what that was?
The timeline. I don't
And
support the repeal of the relevant state law that mandates all school vehicles, be zero emission by 2035. So
and what was the argument behind, I think, was it like they feel that they don't have enough data to?
yes, enough time to prepare for that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you, Rosemary. That's a lot of preparation, a lot of sitting through the meeting, a lot of sifting. So I appreciate
It was interesting.
that.
I
It was
forgot
very
to say
interesting.
thank you. I'm gonna say thank you publicly,
No
Rosemary.
problem.
I know that's a long meeting. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, sure.
Another item in this section that we want to talk about is the New York State School Board Association Annual Conference was held in Buffalo this year at the end of October, and several of us had the opportunity to attend. And thank you to our superintendent, John Luthringer, and another administrator, Megan Coker, was who attended along with Rosemary, Marianne, and I. It was really an excellent opportunity to learn about important educational topics. We got to meet other school board members, other administrators from across the state. We get to hear their perspective, their stories, and learn from each other in addition to the scheduled programming. And the five of us attended a wide variety of programs that were offered, sometimes individually, sometimes we landed in the same program together, which was really actually really nice when we overlapped, because it gave us an opportunity to kind of process and share our takeaways with each other. And so we're going to share some of those takeaways this evening. Do you want to go who wants to go? Let me go? Okay. There were so many programs and so many things that I could share. I'm just going to do a couple of highlights. One of the ones that John and I attended together was school board and budget elections. And there was a lot of factual information shared, a lot of resources, and it really reinforced that we're doing very well in that arena. But we're always looking to see where can we do better. We're always striving to really be functioning at the highest level. So it gave us a chance to evaluate and have resources for questions as we move forward in that. I attended the all-day law conference, and then over the course of the 3 days, many other programs. And as I was going through my notes, the topics that I attended weren't the same, but there was sort of this recurring theme that kept showing up as I was reading through my notes. I didn't really realize it until I read through my notes, and this little thread came through, and it was student support from a holistic standpoint. And in one program, there was this overarching question that, and that was on the first day at the law conference. And it was, the question was that they recommended we should be asking, what is the root cause of behaviors that lead to a need for disciplinary action? So really getting to the root cause. And some other questions that were sort of in that arena that bubbled up, that were recommended, and this was sprinkled through different programs, that they said, really be thinking about and asking is, are we looking at alternatives to suspension? How are we shifting from to more restorative discipline and less punitive discipline? How can we make deeper connections between students and adults in our district? How are our kids getting plugged into appropriate support systems, and what do those systems look like? And most of these topics, they weren't necessarily new concepts, and we offer a lot to our students, but it was, the thought is like, where can we do better? How can we make sure all students are really understood and cared for to the best of our abilities? So it was really interesting how that seemed to weave through the programs. And then most of the programs I attended, my being on the policy committee, like my antenna was up in that arena, and almost all of them I attended. It made me think of some policy related item, and the programs really highlighted the need for very thoughtful, clear policy language, which Marian actually made reference to this evening of how we always really think about that. Are they user friendly? Are they really clear and thoughtful? So that's a goal that we always have, but it's something that popped in my mind. And I just really want to thank the district for the opportunity to be able to go and learn. I always grow so much as a board member and learn a lot. So thank you.
Okay. Yes, I agree with Katie. I really feel that every year, I'm so grateful for this opportunity too, because I really do reflect and grow quite a bit from these classes and lectures that we attend. And I find that afterwards, it's just kind of like, it keeps coming up, different things, come to my mind from the experience. One of the things that I wanted to mention that was really neat, and it was the keynote speaker for the convention was Reverend Nantombi Naomi Tutu, who's the daughter of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and she gave a talk about there was like, the theme was basically a person is a person through other people. And it was, she basically talked about experiences from her childhood and her life, how like at the dinner table, we all eat from the same plate. And so how we treat each other is really a reflection of our own humanity, and that we're not human beings in isolation of each other. And the main thing essentially, when we approach each other with an open mind and we practice seeing each other with an open mind, we create a better world. And I just thought it was I felt so proud of our New York State School Board Association for selecting her, that human being, to be the keynote speaker and deliver that address. It just set an excellent tone to start the convention with, and it was very meaningful. And I want to mention a few of the classes that I took too, but this other experience that was really meaningful was we had the opportunity to have dinner one evening with the South Glens Falls team that was there. And it was a really unique situation because we had just happened to be in like this one room together, and it was just us. And I don't feel that I often get the opportunity to really like meet people and sit and have a meal like that and really connect collegially and get to know people a little bit. So that was, and we had like, there are counterparts, there were some new board members, some people who had been on the board for a long time. And, we talked about our experiences a little bit, and it was really very nice. So I attended the law seminar also the first day, and in addition to the things that Katie mentioned, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, there was a whole section on school board member use of social media. And I think there are 2 cases that are before the Supreme Court this month that have been through the lower courts, but basically having to do with, when you're on social media, when is it your private space and when are you representing the agency that you're serving? And so those are some things to stay tuned for. But there was some encouragement to, take a look at some schools are making district policies over social media. Anyway, there's just some good things to think about in that realm. It was pretty interesting. Let's see here. Find some other things that Yeah, the other thing, I guess the only other thing that I'll mention is that there was another item that I became acquainted with during the convention, which is MTSS, which stands for Multi-Tiered Student Support or Support Systems. So similar to the RTI, which is a tiered response to intervention, which is a tiered system for student support, and more in the realm of academics. The multi-tier support system is broader than that, and it encompasses really like student social, emotional, and behavioral issues. And there were several different sessions I attended. Well, they touched on it in the law seminar, but I attended another session that touched on it as well. And it was it was compelling to me to just consider like the systems that could build around like how do we catch the whole child and support all the way up. And I know that John and Megan attended a different session that touched on MTSS as well. And so it is just thought provoking and something to be thinking of as we move forward. That's it for me.
Okay, well, I'm a big supporter of conferences. I've been an educator for 30 years. So we, as counselors, we would have conferences on the local level, state level. It's so important for us to update our skills, to know what's going on with the state, to know what's going on in other school districts. It's just invaluable. I think Janine probably and Tricia probably agree. Any kind of educational conference for educators is so important, and I think for board members it's critical. I mean, really learn so much about education. So anyway, my report is I also was taken back by Ms. Tutu's speech, and I just wrote down, I had some of the same comments that you did, but I just wrote down one quote that I thought was really good, that she said, stop the tape in your mind that replays the prejudice of one's past, and remember that you're dealing with another human being. And I thought that was pretty good. I was, I think, impressed by that. I went to a couple sessions on motivating and building resilience in students who are having a difficult time. South Glens Falls presented about the day they had to shut down their internet, and Megan was there sharing our experiences this year. And one that I really thought was really eye-opening, how well do we manage conflict? And this particular session, we talked a lot about conflict within the school board. And so that was really interesting to me. And the quote that I took away from it was that conflict is inevitable, but combat is optional. So ask questions, let people be heard, understanding other perspectives, paraphrasing, communication skills, things like that. Just a great reminder about those very important things when we're communicating with each other. There was a conversation with the NYSED senior staff that was really good, talking about the feasibility study that John reported on a few minutes ago. And I too attended the school elections session, which I thought was very interesting and supportive of what we're doing. So that's my report. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you all for attending and for sharing and enriching our board with your time there. And I think it was great that Megan got to go as well. So John, thank you for including administrative team. I just wanted to make a comment for discussion here at the board. We heard 2 public comments that had to do with policy, and policy is one of those things that's squarely in the board purview, and there's a lot to it. And several of us here on the board go deep. Like we get into a policy and we think about it, we talk about it a lot. And I want to thank the community members who come forward with questions because we eat that up, right? We love that. And I also want to thank our administrative team and John for your patience with us as we tend to, look at some of the language and really think about it and talk about it when sometimes we're gonna be like, okay, come on, let's move this along. But we look at that and it can be confusing because there are some policies that are very prescriptive, right? And they have to be because that's legally required. And then there are other policies that are broader. And I see that as an opportunity for guidance for our professionals and really respect for our professionals who are putting in procedures and they are practicing their profession. And we recognize that. We recognize that there's expertise there that we do not need to script, right? And I just wanted to mention that because we do talk about it quite a bit and there's an awful lot of time and energy put toward that. And I also wanted to mention, because this reminded me of the Culture and Climate Committee, when we were looking at our charter and the language that we were using. And John did a great job of pointing out some language that could be refined because it was rooted a little bit in the negative. And I think when we're talking about controversial issues, sometimes we get rooted in the negative. And that word opposing could be a negative term that we don't need to think in that manner and to think, well, controversial issues have many different nuances to them. And I think the word objective is squarely in there now. Let's say that unbalanced. Yeah. And that was just a thought that came to mind in terms of positive language and one of those things that we look at when we look at writing things down.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Trish. That's, yes. Yeah, I mean, that's right. We do look really carefully and just the language that's rooted in that negative space, we do make a conscious effort to make adjustments because we're trying to build positivity and by saying that something's objective and balanced, it is less prescriptive than you must do something in a specific way. And but at any rate, we scan for not just the messaging, but how it is delivered and how it's going to be received. So thank you for making those comments, Trish.
And anything else? Okay. The next item on our agenda is the second public comment period. And we have one person signed up for this. And after I call this person's name, if there's anybody else who would like to comment, even though you haven't signed up, you are certainly welcome to do that. Carrie Miron, is that? Miron, Carrie Miron.
So yes, I'm Carrie Miron. And I wanted to talk with the board or bring up a topic for you guys to consider regarding the late buses. So let me start with asking you what a reasonable commute home from work is to you. Now follow up with asking what the district's expectation includes from the children in the district, including my own children. And my opinion, one of those expectations tends to be having well-rounded kids in both life experiences and in education. So today I came to talk to you about something that is limiting not only my children, but some other children in the district, both in learning and development as they're well-rounded individuals. And this limitation deals with the current late bus routes and schedules. And it's not just limited to this year only, but since my family's experience coming into the district in 2019. So it's been subsequent years. I certainly understand there are limitations in a smaller school district, which is why we love Lake George, and also a smaller town. However, I do feel it's my job as a parent to advocate for my children and the other children in the school district. It's not uncommon that children in my neighborhood particularly are on the late bus for 60 to 90 minutes, depending on the day of the week. It's also never shorter than about 45 minutes. There are 2 buses, from what I understand, 1 for each side of the lake. Personally, this impacts my kids, including having my otherwise very involved 6th grader not wanting to participate in certain after-school activities because of how long it takes her to get home. She also has expressed wanting to quit the music program because navigating the crowded late bus on Thursdays in particular with her French horn is very overwhelming for her. I also have a 4th grader who attends extra help sessions, math club this year, after school. Previous years, it's been other similar programs that the school graciously puts on for her extra academic help, being a lovely COVID kindergarten and 1st grader. However, it's often an argument in regards to her staying after school because of how long she has to be on the late bus. Knowing that this is limiting my children and being working parents, without any local family for support, we can't pick up our kids and during the after school pickup time. And I know that we're not alone in our circumstances. After some informal investigation and discussions with other families in both my neighborhood and a few other families in the school district, I did find that other families have similar discussions and conflict, similar sacrifices of extracurricular activities, including youth sports and other non-school-based clubs, all important on creating that well-rounded individual, have been sacrificed. I've also learned that if more families would actually use the late buses, or involve their kids in after-school programs more if the time spent on the buses and arrival time at home were improved. I want to stress also that by having well-rounded involved children does not mean that they are participating in every sport and in every club every day of the week, but as from our family perspective, 2 children with each kid in a sport to maintain physical activity and to learn the value of being a member of a team, as well as a couple of after-school activities, both fun and academically oriented. So I don't feel that none of their expectations after school in both the school programs or in our personal choices after school are excessive. So in summary, I ask that the district look at our current late bus routes at minimum and consider options to evenly distribute time spent on the buses for the kids, limiting the total time these kiddos spend on the buses, and improve access to after-school programs and increase the use of our transportation system to help keep our kids active and involved with our support from the district.
Thank you, Carrie.
Mhm.
Is there anyone else who would like to come up for public comment?
Hello, my name is Kirsten Preuss, and I was drawn to the meeting tonight to hear the presentation about the UPK. My husband, Steve Preuss, is an employee here in the high school and shared with me that the presentation would be happening tonight. I was very excited about that. So congratulations on that. And just my thoughts are with you in the process. I have taught kindergarten at Kensington Road Elementary School in Glens Falls since 1992. And right next to my classroom is a UPK classroom. It's taught by Lynn Tyner, and she's also taught kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade in our district. And I would highly recommend visiting her classroom. She's a wonderful teacher. Half of her students went to my class and half of her students went to the class across the hall. And it's been just a gift to have those students in our kindergarten classes. One thing I would recommend that I think is wonderful that they do at Glens Falls is that they do a staggered arrival and dismissal for those little children. And I know as a kindergarten teacher, I personally try to stagger my children's dismissal just to get out of the way before the big kids come out the door. So I would highly recommend looking at that with your scheduling in terms of congestion and movement in and out of the building. And just to spread the positivity, I had 2 things that I was really excited about and just wanted to share that I was really happy to hear about from the elementary school. One of them was about the positive energy at the PTSO meeting. And I would like to find out how they get that positive energy. I do not have a student at Lake George Elementary School anymore, but I would love to attend one of their meetings as a guest just to glean from their positive energy and find out how they do it. The other thing that I thought was really exciting is that students in the classroom are receiving encouragement regarding school attendance from their teachers. And I think that's great. And I would love to know what kinds of things the teachers are doing to encourage good attendance with their students. So keep up the great work, and thanks for all of your efforts and time this evening, and for everything that you presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Kirsten. Is there anyone else?
Evening, Brian Reichenbach from Lake George. I want to do two things tonight. I want to thank the board for something, and I want to bring something to your attention, because if you're not aware of it, I think you should be. First, I want to thank you for the gift of the Warrior Head for the town hall. Every day I walk in there, I am so happy to see the Warrior Head in public where it belongs. I'm disgusted and nauseated why it's there as opposed to here. A couple of years ago, I talked to a school board member, and we were going to have a civil, respectful discussion about the Warrior nickname. The State Board of Ed or the state regents decided we weren't going to have that. It happens. I think we could have done some things differently, but that's not really the point of my visit tonight. I want to bring something to your attention. The athletes here in Lake George this year are in a nearly unique situation, a situation that hasn't been here and facing the district for 75 years, sometime in the early 1950s, I guess. Now that they've had their nickname taken away, their uniforms are obsolete. My son just finished the soccer season. He still has his uniform. He's supposed to turn it in Sunday, I think. We asked what was going to happen to those uniforms that we now are prohibited by regulation and policy from using. They're going to be saved in case there's anything wrong with the new uniforms. Correct me if I'm wrong. Even if the new uniforms come in completely unusable, can we wear the jerseys that say Warriors? We can't, right? That's the point of this policy. State Ed has decided they're going to do what the U.S. Army did in the 19th century, kill the Indian and teach the man, right? So we can't use those jerseys. Then I heard, and I don't know if this is true, and I hope it's not, if they sit around for a year or two, they're going to be given away to some third world country for somebody who doesn't have clothes. I'm in favor of that, clothe the poor. I'm not in favor of our jerseys that our kids worked, sweated, and toiled to earn being given away. What I'm proposing is that any athlete who wants to buy any of their Warrior gear at salvage value be allowed to do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Is there anyone else who'd like to come up for public comment? Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and thank you for those of you who came up to share your thoughts and questions this evening. The next item on our agenda is a proposed executive session. The Board of Education of Lake George Central School District proposes entering into an executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular person.
So moved.
Any questions? Discussion? All in-
We don't anticipate coming back into open session.
Correct. Thank you, Trish, for that clarification. Yes, we do not anticipate coming back into open session. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries.